The executive order that President Biden signed, he said there was designed to protect America at a time of national emergency from disruptions in our critical supply chain. But Robert Gibbs, I thought the headline was something he said at the beginning when he said this is the best meeting we've had in our 5 weeks here. It was like the old days. And he made clear that the American people should never face shortages, making clear that this was something that, in his view, had bipartisan support. That is the central theme and central objective of how he has, at least so far, committed to govern as president.
Right, Nicolle, and so many issues that the American people are concerned with they're concerned in a bipartisan way, Republicans and Democrats. Supply chain resiliency is certainly one of those. We faced that at the beginning of this pandemic, whether it was, as the president said, the horrific pictures of watching doctors and nurses have to put on trash bags, or whether we went to the grocery store and found that the shelves were empty for the staples that we needed to survive this pandemic. So I think it's important as an issue for him, and it's good to see leaders in both parties agreeing with the president on the need to make sure there's that resilience.
Michael Steele, I also heard a couple of those shouted questions. He was asked if he's disappointed about the rate of confirmations of his cabinet, and he said he didn't blame the Senate. He said it was, quote, a failure to have a transition that was rational.
That's exactly what I was saying before we went to the break. The expectation game in Washington, as we know, everyone on this panel knows, it's brutal, right? But there's a big asterisk on this particular transition because this president was not afforded the dignity and the respect of his predecessors who were transitioning after their election victory. They have been trying to play catch up from the very beginning. So the president is exactly right. A significant number of cabinet members, particularly, quote, the easy ones, right, are done doing that interregnum between the election and the inauguration, and gives that president coming in the door with a running start of people in place. Joe Biden didn't have that. So we just need to sort of back off of that side of the pressure and recognize the handicap that they're trying to overcome. And I think overcoming pretty well, given the obstacles and given the obstinance of some members of the Republican Party in the Senate who have made up their mind that they're going to vote against every nominee that he puts forward.
I have so many thoughts. I want to put a pin in this. I want to come back to this with all of you. Because it just strikes me as you're talking, I'm fuming anew that Donald Trump was running around with the pillow guy and Mike Flynn talking about martial law around a big lie. And the Republicans, I'm sure some of them who were at the White House today, sort of shrugged their shoulders and said Donald Trump deserves this time. He did not deserve this time. And the country was damaged during that window. The country's been damaged by the fact that he was deprived, as you said, Michael Steele, the dignity of a transition. Robert Gibbs, I also heard him say that he looked at a report on Jamal Khashoggi, who was slaughtered by the Saudis. This is expected to be U.S. foreign policy in the area of Saudi Arabia and Russia, expected to be the two most abrupt shifts in U.S. foreign policy. What should we expect in those areas, knowing the folks that you know who are on his foreign policy team?
Well, I think there's going to be a much more critical examination of what that relationship looks like. I think you've heard them talk about a different posture as it relates to arms sales. And, around this report, I understand from reporting yesterday that the president is supposed to talk with the king of Saudi Arabia. And this report is going to be front and center, and it's going to become it's a grisly report from what the reporting showed. And I assume it will be a pretty blunt conversation. It will be very different from the pictures that we Saudi Arabia very early in his administration.
Rev, listening to the president talk about with such good cheer and enthusiasm, the bipartisan spirit that he said was, quote, like the old days. Republicans have a get-out-of-jail-free card that I'm pretty sure they don't even deserve. And because of his grace, they can come to the table and be a part of trying to move the country forward around the pandemic, around traditionally Republican topics. What do you make of the way President Biden continues to emphasize and extend all this grace and space to the Republicans?
You know, it is sad when decency and proper decorum makes news because we've become so used to ugliness.
You're right.
We've been so used to ugliness and rudeness that it's really news. Let everything stop and look at decency because it's almost a red jewel. And I think that becomes some of the power of Joe Biden. After all that we've seen in the last 4 years, that cost us lives that experts say we didn't have to lose in COVID. And for him to come and say, I had a great conversation with the other side, no sly remark, no innuendo, no kind of sarcasm, just straightforward. And we want to protect the workers and we want to do the right thing. It's so refreshing. And this is sandwiched between a senator leaving his state that is under siege by natural disaster in Texas, and he blames his kids, and this weekend where Donald Trump's going to reemerge at CPAC. So I'm trying to inhale all of the Biden decency I can because I know come the weekend, we're going to be back in this kind of atmosphere. There's no telling. I'm sure if Donald Trump's somewhere gargling now, so his voice will be strong for the nastiest distractions that we are going to hear that we don't need as we are dealing with this COVID-19 crisis. The last thing we need is Donald Trump to reemerge, but reemerge he will.
Hey, thanks for watching our YouTube channel. You should know that you can follow today's top stories and breaking news and catch up on your favorite MSNBC shows all in one place. Download the NBC News app today.